and there is a lot of it. Beginning in Pittsburgh, where Ben Roethlisberger is done for the season. The Steelers made that announcement today. He needs surgery on his right elbow. He will not play again this season. Mason Rudolph will, and he will be throwing passes to Juju Smith-Schuster, who put this on Twitter. A good will, prayers up to Ben Roethlisberger on his upcoming surgery. So sad to hear the news, but we're going to hold it down for you. If it were only Ben Roethlisberger, it would still be a huge news day. It is also Drew Brees. The good news is Brees is not done for the year, but it could be a 2-month injury. Ian Rapoport says 6 to 8 weeks for the Saints after a thumb injury in their loss to the Rams on Sunday. Teddy Bridgewater is now the quarterback for this schedule, and it doesn't get any easier after losing the NFC Championship game rematch. They go to Seattle. They stayed on the West Coast for that game. Then they go home for a Sunday night game against the Cowboys. Then the Bucks, the Jags, the Bears, and the Cardinals. Not exactly the easiest run here for Teddy Bridgewater. There's no change yet in New York, but Pat Shurmur left the door open today that all positions are being looked at as the 0-2 Giants get ready for a Week 3 trip to Tampa. And that does include potentially making a change at quarterback. Now, we didn't specifically say I could be making a change at quarterback, but when told that this could lead to speculation about that, Shurmur said, I understand. Here is what Eli said at his locker.
The motivation is to win. You know, there's nothing more than that. It's not, you want to win because you work. That's why you work hard. That's why you train. That's why you do everything and prepare and practice, and so you can go out there and win football games and build something special. And so nothing changes.
And that was from Kimberly Jones and Twitter, our reporter with the Giants. And Kim will join us a little bit later. Ian Rapoport, Tom Pelissero joining us now. Any more insight here on what Pat Shurmur, Ian, may be thinking?
Well, what he is thinking right now is the same thing the Giants were thinking early on in training camp and really throughout when it became clear that Daniel Jones was the real deal, at least in their minds, at least just based on the early indications. As they told me, Eli is their starter. It wasn't going forward. It wasn't Eli is the starter forever. It was Eli is the starter. And when it comes time to make a change, their goal was to make sure that Daniel Jones was ready. And they saw him early in training camp. And then they saw him during the actual preseason games. And it was really more of the same. If they believe that Daniel Jones is ready to start his career with the Giants, if they think that the future is right now, then perhaps they actually will make a change. Maybe more likely, Tom, is what we see a lot of teams do, which is kind of allow Eli to know that maybe that he gets one more chance this week and then kind of have Daniel Jones ready if they need to put him out there.
Well, we all know that the last time that Eli Manning went to the bench, Ben McAdoo was the coach. It started out as Eli's going to play the first half, then we're going to take a look at Geno Smith and some others, and all of a sudden it morphed into Eli saying, I don't want to keep up my consecutive start streak under those circumstances, just bench me, and there ended up being huge backlash that triggered the series of events that led to McAdoo's ouster as their head coach. It's different now. It's earlier in the season. There's still a lot of time left. They're 2 games back of the Cowboys within the division, but a lot of division games to go. They're at Tampa this week, host the Redskins the following week. 2 games that you would think on paper the Giants are looking at and saying, if we can just find a way to win those, we're right back into this. The question is, does Eli Manning or Daniel Jones give you the best opportunity to win now? This is not all about the quarterback in New York. There's been a lot of changes on defense. They have not had a pass rush, which you saw Janoris Jenkins talking about the other day, and the stress that puts on the back end of the defense. Offensively, they have suspended Golden Tate. They have injuries to some of their other receivers. Sterling Shepard is in the concussion protocol. Is that the best environment to put the number 6 overall draft pick in? Now, we know that Daniel Jones had a lot of tough circumstances at Duke. He did not have NFL caliber players around him. He played through injuries. He did show extraordinary toughness. But this is an organizational decision when you're talking about when do we put this guy into the lineup. Eli Manning, by the way, 37 years old. He's making $17 million this year in the last year of his contract, and he has a no-trade clause. So one way or another, you would think Eli Manning's going to be a part of this team. It's just a matter of, is he the starter for the duration of 2019?
A little bit more from Kim. Eli Manning was asked, how important is it to get some clarity about this and whether or not he is going to be the guy. If there is a decision, he said it's not important. Tom, you were in Pittsburgh. There is a decision there. The Steelers made it official. They sent the press release this morning that Ben Roethlisberger needs elbow surgery. He is done for the season. The key thing here is what exactly is the injury. We don't know yet. Tomlin is going to speak. He's scheduled, as always, at noon Eastern on Tuesday. So maybe tomorrow we get some details. But they do like what they see from Mason Rudolph. And it's his ship for now, so you hope they like him.
Well, he had a strong start yesterday. His second career pass goes right off Dante Moncrief's chest and ends up in an interception, but he rebounded from that. Mason Rudolph completed 12 of 19 passes, threw 2 touchdowns. He made some off-schedule plays, a tricky kind of off-balance throw that he made in the red zone. I spoke to several veteran players in the locker room after. They were all complimentary of the way that Rudolph handled himself. Ramon Foster was particularly vocal about it. He said, listen, we ride with 7. In other words, Ben Roethlisberger's our guy, but he said, Mason Rudolph, he's stone cold, man. He wants to be the show. This is a guy who has put in the work. He's been showing up early. He does get more reps than a lot of backup quarterbacks because Roethlisberger traditionally takes Wednesdays off for rest. So a little bit of rhythm with the starting offense. And now we will see it's different when you're the backup versus when you're the starter. How do they build a game plan around Mason Rudolph going forward?
Yeah, and remember, Tom, Mason Rudolph's the same person who came in, beat out Josh Dobbs for the backup job. And Dobbs is not bad. He's good enough to warrant a 5th-round pick in a trade. That at least is significant and should show you that the Steelers believe that they have something in Mason Rudolph. Remains to be seen whether or not he is a big part of their future, whether or not he's going to be the guy going forward. But he is the guy right now. And for Roethlisberger, Tommy John surgery sounds like something that is at least in the consideration. We know he has an elbow injury. We know it involves ligament damage to his elbow. We know he's out for the year. All of that is major. If, though, Andrew, it is Tommy John, that likely is more than a year recovery and would certainly cast some doubt on the end of Ben Roethlisberger's playing career.
Yeah, and it is important to note we do not know that yet. That is certainly a possibility. It is speculation here. Mike Tomlin at noon Eastern time tomorrow will hopefully give us some more details. But just in general, Tom, I know you just tweeted about this. Andrew Luck decides to retire. Ben Roethlisberger is done for the year. Before that, Nick Foles breaks a collarbone. He is done. We could have Eli Manning benched. He's won 2 Super Bowls, and he'll be up for Canton when he decides to retire 5 years after that. Then there's the Drew Brees injury. We haven't even gotten to that. I mean, look at this list of quarterbacks. You want to talk about a transition year for quarterbacks in the National Football League. This will be it. Now, the good news for the Saints, and for the Jaguars, too, and for the Jets for that matter, obviously, those aren't season-ending injuries. We know that Drew Brees will be back this year. We're looking at 2 months, though. So, Ian, I guess depending on how this surgery goes, he could go on injured reserve. And if he does, that means he has to be out for 8 weeks.
Right, practice in 6 weeks, out for 8 weeks, and just the way the roster is constructed, injury reserve would at least make some sense because they're going to have to add another quarterback. You would think if they have someone who they believe would go in there and kind of take the place of Taysom Hill as the backup, because Taysom Hill also plays special teams, also has a really good role in the offense. They may not want to risk that. They may want another backup who they have to be active, basically filling the Teddy Bridgewater role. But as for Drew Brees, he's out at least 6 weeks for surgery. He's got a torn ligament in his thumb, and some of this depends on what surgery he actually does and what doctor he chooses. There's a couple different options as far as just the procedure. They are varying time frames, and Brees has his choice now. That is what's going on for the rest of the day as he's kind of sending his scans around and getting some different opinions, making sure that he has the right option going forward for his thumb surgery.
That's right, Ian. My understanding is 6 to 8 weeks is the minimum for Drew Brees to be out here. It all does, as you said, depend on what type of surgery he has. So he'll get the additional opinions on his scans. Expect surgery to be scheduled in the near future. Maybe not today, but certainly within the coming days to expedite the time frame on which Drew Brees may be able to return to the Saints. Now, they were well aware as of last night that this could be an injury that would lead to surgery, and that puts all the spotlight onto Teddy Bridgewater. Remember, Teddy Bridgewater had the the opportunity to go to Miami in the offseason, compete to be their starting quarterback. Instead, he decided to stay with Sean Payton, who he has a very close relationship with, in New Orleans, continue training in that offense, potentially as a successor somewhere down the line to Drew Brees. Now, we have not seen Teddy Bridgewater in a meaningful regular season game since he suffered a catastrophic knee injury back in 2016. So how does Sean Payton go about playing to the strengths of Teddy Bridgewater? How does it show up over 70 snaps a game in terms of his mobility? Any changes to his style from the last time that we saw him over 3 years ago? I do know one thing in speaking to teammates about Bridgewater. They say when he came back from that knee injury, his arm was actually stronger. He did a lot of upper body lifting during that time. They say the ball has a little bit more pop when they come out of his hands. So maybe we see a little bit more of a vertical element to Teddy Bridgewater's game. It'll be fascinating to see how Sean Payton designs it starting this week against a really tough Seahawks team in Seattle.
A very tough Seahawks team. And then the Cowboys on Sunday night at NBC game, week 4. Thank you, Tom Pelissero. Thank you, not pictured, Ian Rapoport. And you guys thought we were going to be talking about Antonio Brown all day today. We're not. Well, we are next. However, what does this mean for the Patriots moving forward now that he shows up and gets in the end zone? And the fact that he didn't talk afterwards, all that next.
Isn't it nice when you can